Home, Shri Shekhar Gupta, keynote speaker for the day, Shri Anil Goswami, Union Home Secretary, senior officers of the Union and State governments, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is a matter of immense pride for me to stand before this august gathering on the occasion of second NIA Day. 6 years ago, after the Parliament of India unanimously legislated the National Investigating Agency Act 2008, NIA came into being and was assigned the onerous task of providing an effective counter-terrorism law enforcement response. Today I can confidently assert that we have diligently and effectively discharged the mandate assigned to us. Over the past 6 years, we have investigated 92 cases and the agency has been successful in solving 90% of them and in achieving conviction in over 85% of the cases in which the trial has been completed. This has been possible due to the dedication and hard work put in by the officers and men. Our spread has also increased in the last 1 year. In 2014, we opened a new branch in Kolkata. It is also significant that the majority of cases entrusted to NIA pertain to jihadi terrorism and northeast insurgency, two core concerns that have plagued the country. Of utmost satisfaction is the fact that our investigations continue to adhere to higher standards of professionalism and ethics. I can proudly state before this House that we are emerging as an agency with a high degree of credibility in the eyes of judiciary and the public. Today, we reaffirm our resolve to attain higher standards of excellence in investigation and prosecution. I would be failing in my duty if I do not place on record the cooperation that we have received from our sister agencies and state police forces. It is these effective partnerships in intelligence sharing, fugitive trafficking, and operational support which have resulted in our successes. Today, we have assembled here for the second NIA Day and the second R.V. Raju Memorial Lecture. Late Shri R.V. Raju, NIA's founder DG, was a fine police officer, a rare gentleman who combined the qualities of head and heart. Let me take this opportunity to welcome Srimati Raju and thank her for accepting our invitation to be present on this occasion. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome Shri Kiran Rijiju, Union Minister of State for Home, to preside over today's function. He has been a source of constant support to the NIA and was instrumental in envisioning and implementing novel initiatives for the police. Sir, on behalf of NIA, on behalf of the entire NIA family, it is my proud privilege to welcome you to this gathering. Shri Shekhar Gupta, editor, columnist and writer, is a doyen among media professionals and an expert in public affairs. He has kindly consented to deliver the second NIA Day lecture. I welcome him to this gathering and we all look forward to hearing from him. May I also take this occasion to accord a warm welcome to Shri Anil Goswami, who has always accorded NIA a special attention. Due to his cooperation and encouragement, the NIA has achieved tremendous success today. I also warmly welcome other distinguished officers of the Union and State governments who have taken time off their busy schedule and honored us by their presence. Let me also take this opportunity to congratulate our distinguished medal winners who have made us proud. Thank you.
We would now like to honor some distinguished officers who have been decorated with the Indian Police Medal for Meritorious Service during the previous years. May I invite the Honorable Minister of State for Home Affairs to kindly present the honors as I request the 5 award winners to come forward and receive them. Shri Sajid Farid Shapu, Deputy Inspector General. Shri Shapu joined the IPS in 1998 and was allotted to the Madhya Pradesh cadre. After serving as Superintendent of Police in 4 districts, he joined NIA in 2009 and is now functioning as Deputy Inspector General in charge of Central Investigation Division 2. The President of India awarded him the Police Medal for Gallantry in 2005 and the first Bar to Police Medal for Gallantry in 2008 for his outstanding bravery. His outstanding work was also recognized by the state government, and he was awarded the Chief Minister Revolver for excellence in anti-dacoity operations in the year 2007. In recognition of his 16 years of excellent service, he was awarded the Police Medal for Meritorious Service by the President of India on the occasion of Republic Day in 2014. Shri Sajid Farid Shabu. Many congratulations to you. Shri Sudesh Kumar Rana, Deputy Superintendent of Police. Shri Sudesh Kumar Rana joined the Indo-Tibetan Border Police in 1988 as a direct sub-inspector and is currently working as Deputy Superintendent of Police in the NIA headquarters at New Delhi. Before joining NIA, he served in the Central Bureau of Investigation and the Special Protection Group, where he was part of the close protection team of the Prime Minister. In recognition of his 26 years of excellence in service, the President awarded him the Police Medal for Meritorious Service on the occasion of Independence Day in 2014. Shri Sudesh Kumar Rana. Shri Anil Kumar, Deputy Superintendent of Police. Shri Anil Kumar joined the Railway Protection Force in 1989 as a direct sub-inspector and is currently working as Deputy Superintendent of Police in the NIA headquarters at New Delhi. In the RPF, he worked in the police station, crime, intelligence and vigilance wings and was involved in various high-profile investigations. In recognition of his 25 years of excellence in service, the President awarded him the Police Medal for Meritorious Service on the occasion of Independence Day in 2014. Shri Anil Kumar. Shri Mani Pradeep Babu Rao, Inspector. Shri Mani Pradeep Babu Rao joined the Central Industrial Security Force in 1987 as a direct sub-inspector and is currently working as Inspector of Police in the NIA at NIA Branch Office, Mumbai. He has also worked in the Central Bureau of Investigation and has been involved in various high-profile investigations. In recognition of his 26 years of excellence in service, the President awarded him the Police Medal for Meritorious Service on the occasion of Republic Day in 2014. Shri Mane Pradeep Babu Rao. Shri Rajesh Bhabor, Constable. Shri Rajesh Bhabor joined the Border Security Force in 1990 as a constable and is currently working as constable in the NIA headquarters at New Delhi. He has served in various sensitive border posts as well as in the National Security Guards. In recognition of his 24 years of excellence in service, the President awarded him the Police Medal for Meritorious Service on the occasion of Independence Day in 2014. Shri Rajesh Bhabor. Thank you so much, sir, and many congratulations to the winners. We now move on to the highlight of the day, the second R.V. Raju Memorial Lecture on Pakistan and Neighborhood, a Hawkish Agenda, to be delivered by Shri Shekhar Gupta, eminent editor, columnist and author. Ladies and gentlemen, Shri Shekhar Gupta.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for being here so early in the morning. By my standards, very early. My friend Pranay Roy and I say that there's a wrong allegation on us that we start a day late. We work 9 to 9, but London time. So for me, I'm very impressed by people who turn out so smartly at work so early. Thank you very much. I also took the minister's permission, who's much younger than me and who I have known since he used to be, I can say, a bacha. He's in my days of covering the Northeast many years ago. So I've taken his permission to take my jacket off and to also fold my sleeves, because I can't think with my sleeves not rolled down. Thank you very much, Minister, Mr. Sharad Kumar, Director, Mr. Goswami. We are also old friends. All of you, Navneet, all of you here for choosing a journalist to come and speak to a very serious audience. But I was warned before I was asked to come to speak here that what people will not particularly appreciate is a 30-page written speech. So I think Mr. Sharad Kumar had hedged his risks. So we journalists spend all our time with somebody telling other people not to write too much. And as journalists, we always write too much. So I think he knew that reputation of journalists. So he said, be more conversational and be more open, and frankly, be more open-minded. So the subject that you have here, Pakistan and neighborhood, a hawkish agenda. Now suppose I had said Pakistan and neighborhood, a dovish agenda. I think would have been difficult for me to qualify to be here. I think that itself would have persuaded Mr. Sharad Kumar to find some excuses to change his speaker for today. Because this mood in the country for a long time now, I would say since 2008, has been what traditionally can be described as hawkish. Not just towards Pakistan, but generally towards our neighborhood and generally towards the world. Now, there is an old story about being a hawk and a dove. Mr. Natwar Singh, when he was the foreign minister, in fact, Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, he was asked, are you a hawk or a dove? And he said, Arey bhai, am I running the Ministry of External Affairs or am I running a bird sanctuary? So the point is not whether you are a hawk or a dove. The point is what achieves your objectives. Labels can be found later, and very often you find that what works is a combination and a non-formulaic combination, and that's where I am headed. In 1995, I wrote an article for the annual edition of Seminar magazine, which was titled Pakistan, a Hawk's Agenda. So when you asked me, sir, to speak today, and so I said, what can I talk about? I can talk about corruption, but others can talk about corruption better. I can talk about improving the quality of India's polity. You can find many people who can do that better. I can talk about the parliamentary lockdown in India, but there are many people, maybe you can get the Speaker of Parliament, you are the NIA, anybody can come and speak here. So I thought maybe I'll speak about the neighborhood, particularly Pakistan, and speak more from my experience, because I'm not a policy maker. I have never had access to policy documents. I never have access to internal papers and reports, as I'm sure Mr. Goswami does. I don't have access to that extent even to the current, not access because I'm not an active reporter anymore. I see the changing moods and minds from the outside. So I will speak more conversationally, I will speak from experience. So Mr. Sharad Kumar, you know what you, if at the end of it you're disappointed, you know that you asked for it. A word of compliments for NIA. NIA is one of those virtuous three-letter words. I say Delhi is run by a tyranny of dreaded three-letter words. If I may say so, there are many of them. CVC, CBI, CAG, etc., 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 who always keep hitting our headlines. NIA, on the other hand, has been a quieter, a newer three-letter acronym which has emerged in Delhi, and I think it has done a fantastic job in a very short while. And look, it's a question of how decisions get made in India, because everybody felt outraged after 26/11 that public opinion forced India's very broken politics. If it go back to 2008, 9, 10, our politics was even more broken than it is now, because Congress party itself had differences, Congress party's allies and Congress had differences. There were issues about what will work with which set of voters. Many chief ministers did not want any centralized power, particularly over law and order. But the weight of public opinion was such that NIA was formed. NTRO sort of came up, and I'm sorry that NCTC somehow got stopped. We could not quite take it to logical conclusion, but maybe in the course of time that will happen as well. I say this because I draw a larger lesson from this, and the larger lesson is, if any of you has read Nandan Nilekani's book, Imagining India, Nandan has a central thesis, and it's a very wise thesis. Nandan says in India, it's very difficult to bring any major change top down. Somebody says, do it, I am doing it, everybody does it. वो होता नहीं है हमारे यहाँ पे. See, our national immune system is very strong. So this is Nandan read with Amartya Sen. We are argumentative. The moment somebody says, do it, my first question is, why? आपको क्या फायदा है? Why are you asking me to do this? So Nandan's point is that ideas that work in India are ideas that come from the bottom, and ideas which are then discussed and debated for a long time. And through the discussion and debate, and you get very frustrated many times that this is not happening, this is not happening, other countries have done it, why are we not doing it, this is the most reasonable thing to do. But through the discussion and debate, a moment comes where a critical mass of public opinion wants something to be done. And that something then gets done. And I think NIA was one such idea that came up at the right time, it got the right impetus, it got constituted well, and it has done nothing in the short period of existence that it has had to disappoint anybody. It's been a wonderful organization, sir, and the real success of NIA is that it's got credibility. And NIA gets to do an investigation. People know that NIA will make a very sincere effort to get to the bottom of it and not be colored by other agendas. Now, I say this because I see this as nicely dovetailing into the theme of today's talk. Because around our neighborhood, we have countries that constantly look at India. I'll give you a couple of examples from Pakistan. One night, when Mr. Nawaz Sharif was Prime Minister the second time, one night I got a phone call from him, and I'm not betraying a confidence, it's something which I once checked with him that I could talk about this, and it's about time ho gaya, baat kar sakte hain. And I'd become friends with him when he used to be Finance Minister of Punjab in Pakistan, and there's a story about that also, linked to my hawkish agenda. So he called me late at night, and he said, can you please tell me, and this is the Prime Minister calling. At that point I wasn't even such a senior editor. I was an editor at India Today, 1992, but not such a senior editor. So I said, sir, bataiye. So he said, in which, he was talking to me in Punjabi and Urdu, but he said, in which circumstances can the army intervene in your country? So I said, Nawaz Sahab, what do you mean by army intervene in my country? So he said, no, but under what circumstances can army decide that things are out of control of the civilians in a part of your country and the army can come and intervene there? So I said, as far as I am concerned, I don't believe there is any such set of circumstances where the army by itself can decide that it can go and intervene anywhere. He said, ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है? How is it possible? So I said, but that is it. So he said, आपके आइन में क्या लिखा हुआ है? What does your constitution say? So I said, look, I haven't reread my constitution for a very long time, and I am not a constitutional expert, but I have a copy of the constitution lying here. If you want, I will check it. You can call me in 10 minutes, but I do not believe there is anything in the constitution that gives any role to the armed forces to quote unquote intervene in any situation. So he said he'll call me in 10 minutes. So he called me back in 10 minutes. Once again, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, and I'm sure many of your seniors from your services would have been overhearing that conversation. So maybe somebody has it recorded. So I said, sir, I have read the Indian Constitution. From a quick reading, I find the only place where the Indian Constitution mentions Indian Armed Forces is where it says that President of India will be Supreme Commander of the Indian Armed Forces. He said, beyond that, they can never intervene. I said, intervene to sir, sawal hi nahi hai. They can't interfere. It's not can't. That is not the scheme of things. And why should anybody want to? So somebody was prompting him, obviously one of his senior civil servants. And he said, bhai, ye Wahid sahab keh rahe hain. Wahid, as it turned out, was his principal secretary. and so loyal that he went into exile with him when he went to Saudi Arabia. So he said, ये कह रहे हैं कि आपके यहाँ असम के अंदर आर्मी आती है, नागालैंड में आर्मी आती है, कश्मीर में आर्मी आती है, पंजाब में भी आर्मी आई. So those are areas where things go out of the control of your police forces and the civilian government. So army goes and intervenes there. So I said, sir, it's not like that. In our country, army is called out in aid to civil power. Civil administration decides that they need to call out the army, and this much I know from having covered many such disturbed situations. And in those situations, even an army patrol going out under law has to be accompanied by a civilian magistrate. Even the order to open firing has to be given by a civilian magistrate. So he said, but Kashmir mein kaise lad rahe hain sab log? So then I said to him that, look, we have something called Armed Forces Special Powers Act. And I said, background that I know is that this act was designed actually for Northeast in the 50s when Naga insurgency broke out. It was first drafted as Armed Forces Special Powers Assam Act because Nagaland was a part of Assam, and then it's been modified over time. So there are specific parts of the country where things may be completely out of control, or where the army may be required or armed forces may be required to operate at a certain level, where civilian government promulgates Armed Forces Special Powers Act and calls in the armed forces and give them special powers. So he said, are you absolutely sure of this? I said, yes. So he said, look, I will tell you something confidentially. I said, tell me. He said, I am having trouble in Karachi and my army is saying they want to go and intervene in Karachi. And I am telling him, how can you go and intervene? They say, this happens in India also. Army goes and intervenes. And now you are telling me that there is army in India has no authority to go and intervene. Army has to function under law. I said, yes. So he said, ये जो आप law कह रहे हैं, Armed Forces Special Powers Act, can I see a copy of it? And this is sort of pre-email days and pre-internet days in a way, 92. So I said, sure, sir. This is called, I have a copy of the Bear Act, I think, lying in my office. I can pick it up. Or any of your people from the embassy can go to E.D. Galgotia and Sons or Jan Law Book House and buy a copy. So he said, what time will you be in your office tomorrow? So I said, usually around 11 o'clock. Kal thoda jaldi chale jaye. One of my people will come. So 10 o'clock next morning, somebody came from Pakistan High Commission or embassy, whatever it was at that time. And he said, I didn't find a copy. The law book shop is not open. Can you give me your copy of the act? So I gave him my copy of Armed Forces Special Powers Act, and he took it away. And later, Mr. Nawaz Sharif acknowledged to me that because that was sent to me, I was able to read it to my generals to say that, look, other countries also have figured out a mechanism to bring the army to help maintain law and order and to fight insurgencies. Why don't you work towards a system? Now, how did that work? Do you call it India's dovish influence over Pakistan? Do you call it India's hawkish influence over Pakistan? I would say this was a case of virtuous influence being exercised because of our democracy, because of our constitutional system. And I said to you that I will tell you another linked story from days when Mr. Nawaz Sharif was Chief Minister of Punjab, the first time I met him. And his finance minister was a man called Shah Mahmood Qureshi, who later became Pakistan's famous or infamous foreign minister for a long time. And he, at that first meeting I had with Mr. Nawaz Sharif, Mr. Shah Mahmood Qureshi took me aside and he said कि आपके यहाँ एक commission बना था Central State Relations के ऊपर. It is called the Sarkaria Commission. So you can put the vintage on this conversation. The vintage on this conversation is 88, 89. So I said, हाँ जी. So he said, can I get a copy of that report? Because we are having problem between all our provinces on distribution of central finances, tax revenues, and on distribution and sharing of river waters. So I came back and I had a copy of thick Sarkaria Commission report sent to his High Commission in Delhi. I don't know how much effect it had there, but the fact is it hasn't had much effect in India as well. We've forgotten the Sarkaria Commission report, although it would have set our center-state relations in a very different way, because that is the way the politics of our country at that time was. It was very majoritarian. So I give these two examples to tell you that our neighborhood looks at us all the time. We can be a good influence on our neighborhood. We can be a bad influence on our neighborhood. I don't have enough time to list all good and bad influences, but I will give you some more examples. One of our worst foreign policy actions over the past 30 years, one of our biggest foreign policy mistakes has been what you would call a hawkish mistake. And we paid for it. Too many people have paid for it, and too many people have paid for it with their lives. I'm talking about Sri Lanka. Now there is no, I wrote a story in January 1984, 31 years back, for India Today magazine, when I was still on probation as a reporter, that our agencies were running training camps for Sri Lankan terrorists or militants. We never used the term terrorists too much those days. Sri Lankan insurgents or militants in Tamil Nadu. And there was an immediate reaction from the establishment. There was a lot of abuse saying you are anti-national. I think Blitz, or a sister paper of Blitz, Mr. Karanjia's Blitz, which many of these sort of more senior people will remember, had a front page story saying that it's Lanka today, not India today. And it said that I wrote that story after taking a bottle of Scotch whiskey from the Sri Lankan Deputy High Commissioner in Chennai, in Madras then. So in fact, I got very angry and I said, I'm going to sue these fellows. So Arun Puri told me, this is Karanjia, nobody sues Karanjia, just write him a funny letter. So I wrote him a funny letter that be careful, I may have been bribed, but if you think reporters of India Today can be bought for one bottle of whiskey, nobody will even give a glass of Tharra to Blitz's reporters. So we left it at that. But the fact is, you see how that story unfolded later. Rajiv Gandhi paid for it with his life. Nearly 1,500 Indian soldiers died. So many moderate politicians in Sri Lanka died. And frankly, although Rajapakse did slay that monster finally, it cost tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of Tamil lives, and frankly many Sri Lankan soldiers' lives. If you look at the tragedy of Sri Lanka's Sinhala population is just about 1 crore. They raised an army of nearly 200,000 at one point, which is, in terms of per capita or per 100 people or per 1,000 people, a very large army. They suffered casualties over 3 or 4 years, physical casualties in their army, which in terms of percentage of population would be like them fighting 5 or 6 Kargils every year for 10 years. They had large-scale desertions in their army. They had 26%, 28% inflation in their country. Their constitutional system got subverted until now it's being restored. It is now being restored back. All of this happened. I know that history of this has not yet been written, but there were many issues. One of the issues was, of course, that there was a Tamil issue. Tamils were being targeted. Tamils were being. It was a racist regime in Sri Lanka, and something had to be done. But one of the issues, when you go back, was how Indian politics played into Sri Lanka and vice versa in mid-70s. In India, in 1977, Mrs. Gandhi and Sanjay Gandhi were defeated after the emergency. Does anybody remember what was the Congress party's symbol at that time? Election symbol? Gai Bachda. Cow and a calf, which was also very symbolic of the party at that point. So Jayawardene, who was contesting elections in Sri Lanka, he went around saying, voters of India have thrown out their cow and the calf. Can't the voters of Sri Lanka also do that? He was referring to Sri Mava Bandar Naike and her son Anura. This came back to Mrs. Gandhi and she was furious. And if you go back to archives of that period, Mrs. Gandhi, when she was out of power briefly, when Janta was in power, and Mr. Morarji Desai was following what was seen to be a very soft agenda towards the neighborhood. In fact, most people don't remember that Mr. Morarji Desai got the highest honor from Pakistan, highest civilian honor from Pakistan, which was held against him finally. She said, ये कैसी सरकार आ गई है? अब तो बड़े-बड़े देश क्या छोटे-छोटे देश भी हमको आंख दिखा रहे हैं. So why big countries, even smaller neighbors are now not listening to us. So when she came back in the old-fashioned hawkish frame of mind. She was correcting what she saw as the weakness of the Morarji Desai Janta government, weakness, woolly-headedness, etc., etc. And remember, less than a decade earlier, she had liberated Bangladesh. And in that mood, she overcorrected her policy. And the biggest mistake she made on foreign policy, as she moved between dovish and hawkish to dovish, was in Sri Lanka. Because she said, how can these small countries act in a way as if they don't accept or respect our influence or our moral authority? And then things went out of control. The rest of the history is too long to be written. My favorite line on Sri Lanka is a sad line. I always mention that when I did that first story in India Today on Sri Lankan Tamil training camps in India, I spent about 2 weeks in Chennai and Tamil Nadu. Again, it was Madras then. On my notebook, I don't take many notes in my life, but at least names and all, and these were unfamiliar names. That notebook had 26 names of people I had met in the course, interviewed in the course of that story. Of the 26 now, 25 have died violent deaths, mostly at the hands of LTTE. So this was such a bloodletting decade that was unleashed. I'll tell you how equation works at the other end, and you can decide whether that is dovish or hawkish. In 1985, I was going to Sri Lanka. In fact, I was forbidden by my editor from going to Sri Lanka after that first story on the camps, because Sri Lankan government misused that story, as any government would do. They made pamphlets out of that story, and their missions all over the world circulated that story to say, see, an Indian publication, a respected Indian publication is saying that India is running these training camps. So Arun Puri had forbidden me from going to Sri Lanka, saying that you will be, not because I don't want you to go there, he said, but because your life will be endangered, something funny may happen to you. You are now controversial and you are now well known. So being a thick-skinned reporter, towards the end of 85, I did go to Sri Lanka. And I was on the flight from Chennai to Colombo. I had a gentleman called Rear Admiral Jayasurya sitting next to me. Who was Rear Admiral Jayasurya? He was the Joint Operations Command Head in Trincomalee for Army, Navy, Air Force, Sri Lanka. And bato mein, he mentioned to me that he had been to NDA in India. He was an NDA cadet. And as usual, as all we reporters do, we are name droppers. So I figured out what batch he was, and I figured out that I knew some of his batchmates. I dropped a few names, obviously famous Indian soldiers, and we became friends on a 45-minute flight. 3 days later in Trincomalee, I was in Trincomalee, again not allowed to go there, but I just gone there. I found a mob burning a Tamil temple, and I was taking pictures of it when army came and arrested me, and they took me to a police station along with 2 British journalists, and they just shoot them and say the LTTE shot them. This was a closed thing, and we simply didn't know what to do, because in any case nobody loved Indians at that point. So the only thing I could think of was Admiral Jayasurya, and I said, Admiral Jayasurya is a friend of mine. Please call him. So this officer said, how can I call my JOC? JOC they call it, Joint Operations Commander. How can I call my JOC? I just tell him, he's a friend of mine. So after a great deal of persuasion, and a Chief Marshal Krishna Swamy is sitting here, you know that in the subcontinent or in any armed forces or uniformed forces, once you throw rank at somebody, people think twice. So finally he got across to Admiral Jayasurya. And Admiral Jayasurya remembered that we had met, and he thought that I knew people who he knew from his days in NDA. So he sent a vehicle from his headquarters to the police station we were held, and he called me and he said, you get in this vehicle, it'll take you to the train station, get on that bloody train and get out of here. So if I had not met him the previous day, if he had not come to NDA in India, if he did not have connections in India, God knows what would have happened that day. Now, do you call that exercise, and I'm using now for the first time a word that I haven't used so far, do you see this as exercise of India's hard power or India's soft power? Do you see this as an exercise of India's cultural academic power or India's military superiority. You can choose what you want, but it's a combination of all. It is an exercise of India's military superiority, but it's also an exercise of India's military, intellectual, academic superiority. So I call it a hawk's agenda because the moment you say hawk and dove and the moment you say armed or unarmed, we undermine our power greatly. The beauty of a country like India is that we can combine soft power and hard power. We can combine uniform power and not just ununiformed power, but even the topi-clad rebellious power. कि यहाँ सब चलता है. All this adds to India's combined power, which we have to employ in the neighborhood. Sometimes we do it well, sometimes we don't. I had an argument when Mr. Modi was being sworn in live on a in the TV studio. When he was being sworn in, somebody said, one of the supporters of the BJP, an articulate supporter, articulate, educated, former CEO of a very successful company, Sunil Alagh. He used to be CEO of Britannia. And he said, how wonderful to see that Mr. Modi is being sworn in as our Prime Minister and their leaders from all the neighborhood. We are telling the people of all the neighborhood that democracy is a good thing and a peaceful transition is carried out in the democracy. So I said, listen, don't be patronizing. Every single leader from the neighborhood who was present at that swearing in has seen peaceful transition through an election. Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka now, but before that Rajapaksa, Maldives, even Bhutan has an elected prime minister now. So there is something, what is this thing about this subcontinent that everybody has embraced the idea of free elections, votes, democracy, and ultimately a liberalizing state system. Is it India's influence? Is it because the British were here? You can choose choose who you want to send compliments to. But I would say there is something about the subcontinent, and it is greatly because of the influence of founding fathers of India and people who led our freedom movement and Gandhiji and others and their moral authority, that democracy has become the central faith of the entire South Asian region. It is the only region in the world of its kind, given per capita incomes here, given problems among countries with each other here, given the fact that we had such mixed populations, given the fact that we have 1, 2, 3 Muslim majority countries in this region, that is Pakistan, Bangladesh, Maldives, clear large Muslim majority countries, in fact Maldives almost exclusively Muslim. More Muslims in the world have the free right to vote in this subcontinent than in the rest of the world. I say that very carefully. And some of that has to be, in fact, in my view, a lot of that has to be ascribed to Indian influence in the region. You can call it soft influence, you can call it hard influence. But when people have problems between states in their countries, they look at an Indian Sarkaria Commission report. When when other people have to decide how to call in the army to aid civil power, they look at laws that we have devised. If Sri Lanka has to figure out how to devolve power to their north, they look at the Indian example. In fact, I'm sure there are many officers here from the northeast. You know, the great example is our young minister sitting here. Sir, how many innovations have we carried out in our constitution under Article 371, which follows Article 370 to answer the insecurities that many of our small minorities had in the northeast? When the Naga Peace Accord was being signed, Naga leaders said that, look, our last departing British Deputy Commissioner had said that if Indians come in, they will take away all the oil and minerals under your soil. So so one sub-clause was inserted, I think is Article 371(1)(b), which says that Government of India cannot prospect for any minerals under the soil of Nagaland without the permission of the people of Nagaland. And how is the permission of people of Nagaland taken? Not through a referendum as Arvind Kejriwal wants, but through a resolution of Nagaland Assembly. So that also legitimizes a Nagaland Assembly. So all the constitutional innovations we've carried out, all the loosening of the federal structure we've carried out, all the federalization of the polity we have carried out, all these peaceful transitions of power that we have carried out are much greater influence in the neighborhood than all the mega tonnage of our nuclear weapons, our armed forces, our police, our intelligence, etc., etc., etc. In fact, I always say that now with both countries, particularly India and Pakistan, having gone nuclear, exercise of military power has become now a very limiting option, because you don't know what's on the other side. And I'll quote you a conversation I once had with Mr. Vajpayee in 2001 December, just after the attack on Parliament, when it looked like we were going to war. Sir, Chief Marshal would remember that. So I think 29th or 30th of December, I saw time with him, and I went to meet him. So he said, "Aap kya karne aaye?" It was a sunny day. We were sitting in his garden having soup. So I said, "Sir, ये आप लड़ाई करने वाले हैं कि नहीं? Are you going to war or not?" So he said, "आप क्यों पूछ रहे हैं? आप लड़ने जाएंगे? Will you go to? Are you volunteering to go to war? This is not your age." Mr. Vajpayee was like that. He could always pull your leg. So I said, "No, actually I had planned a family vacation after a long time deep in Kerala, in the hills of Kerala. And in my absence, you will start a war and you will close the airspace and I'll be stuck in Kerala. So what will I tell my grandchildren? That when the great war took place, I was sitting safely in Kerala." So he said to me, looked at me for a minute, and he said, "Is this any time to go on a vacation?" So the moment he did that, my heart sank. I said, "These guys are going to war." So I said, "Iska matlab aap yudh karne wale hai kya?" So he said something very interesting to me, and I think which ties in very well with the larger idea we're exploring today. He said to me, "Look, the problem with the war is, and the problem with the exercise of military power is, that starting it, when to start it, and how to start it is entirely in your hands. When it will end and how it will end is not in your hands." So he says you have to think many times before taking that decision. So then I asked him, and almost 15 years have passed, so I can say so. Then I asked him, and with Mr. Vajpayee, one could be very informal. मैंने कहा, फिर आप ये झूठ और फरेब कर रहे हैं? You're basically carrying out deception. So he said, अब ये ब्रजेश जी से पूछिए, ask Brajesh ji, don't ask me. So I said, "Sir, लेकिन you've now taken your forces to the border, everything is at the ready. One incident can trigger off a real war. So if you don't actually want to fight a war, why do you risk a war?" So he said, "Brajesh ji will tell you this better, but I can tell you that a threat of war, for coercive diplomacy to work, the threat of war has to be so real that we also start believing it." Now, was it the use of soft power? Was it the use of hard power? Was it the use of military power? Was it the use of diplomatic power? I think, as far as I am concerned, I have to be very careful because I have distinguished soldiers sitting here. In my view, it was one of the most astute uses of employments of military power in India's history. That you use superior military power without exercising it. And in my book, the speech that Musharraf delivered, I think on 13th of January that year, was the most groveling, the most, conciliatory is a very mild word. It was a speech like that I have never heard from a Pakistani leader. And this was a military leader with 66-inch chest. He used to walk around like this. And he even said that India wants all these suspects of terrorism in their country back. If we find them, we'll give them back, because after all, we haven't given them asylum in our country. Frankly, it's an aside. I do think that is the day we should have called off Parakram and declared victory. But that's a different story. But the fact is that we were able to use a notion of superior military power to achieve diplomatic and national strategic objectives without having to use that power. I contrast that with what is seen as today's hawkishness. Today's hawkishness is they beheaded one soldier, you behead 10 soldiers. They killed one on the border, you kill 3 on the border. And if you look at the history of firing that's gone on now for a few months on the LOC, if you actually look at the bottom line, the numbers will be around the same on both sides. So if there's a balance of terror between two border forces, the balance of terror has been established. So maybe one more here, one more there. This is not the way to implement a hawkish agenda in the neighborhood. A better way of implementing a hawkish agenda in the neighborhood, a result-oriented agenda in the neighborhood, has actually been shown by the NIA in West Bengal. West Bengal NIA has gone to Burdwan and found this large module of Bangladeshi terrorists who were planning, at least for now, terror activity in Bangladesh, which is a neighboring and friendly country. This is a perfect reciprocation for a situation where Bangladesh government has been handing over our terrorists hiding in Bangladesh to us and acting against them. This is a complete change from the way our relationship had been for a long time between India and Bangladesh. Our people are finding sanctuaries there, their people are finding some sanctuaries here but not too much. And also our border forces are hostile to each other. But look at the change that's taken place in Bangladesh. Government of Bangladesh has dismantled Bangladesh Rifles, which was seen to be a rogue force. None of us can forget, and we remember with great bitterness, bodies of BSF soldiers being carried like this, tied to sticks from the Bangladeshi side. So she dismantled that force. She is now moving against clergymen and mullahs who were involved in 1971 atrocities and giving them death sentences. Some of them have escaped to Pakistan and joined Pakistan's extreme right-wing groups just to survive. She is calling herself hers a secular country. Her army backs her in calling Bangladesh a secular country. In fact, I go around the world at conferences and things, and I said, look, this is how short-sighted you Westerners are. You keep complimenting Indonesia for having risen as this fine example of multiculturalism and as a multi-religious Islamic majority society which believes in democracy and which has stability and which is moving forward. That compliment actually belongs to our closest neighbor to the east, that is Bangladesh. Because Bangladesh has an even larger Muslim majority. Bangladesh has many more problems compared to Indonesia. Bangladesh doesn't have a fraction of the natural resources that Indonesia has. Bangladesh lives in a very difficult environment under strong influence from Pakistan, hostility of India, insecurity about India. Bangladesh is influenced all the time by what happens in India. And let's see the marvelous way that country has progressed. And that has benefited that country also in terms of its own social indicators, its literacy levels, its health indicators. In fact, on most of these indicators, Bangladesh is today ahead of India. How has that happened? That's happened almost entirely because of the good influences that flow from India. You can go to Nepal and you can see the same example. Nepal is a marvelous country. Our Prime Minister went to Nepal and he made this point very effectively. He said, look at Nepal. In this country, Maoists have given up guns. From bullet, they've moved to the ballot. So what is better than insurgents giving up arms and saying, all right, I can get power if I'm popular, but I must do it the old-fashioned way? Because every time a government changes peacefully in India, it tells all our neighborhood that this is the way to govern yourself. So countries like Maldives, which did not have a real democracy, Bangladesh, which gave itself democracy but lost it, Pakistan, which has just had an elected government complete its full term for the first time. You know, a friend of mine in Pakistan has been telling me, I keep asking him, when will, in fact, I ask all Pakistanis that when will an elected government in Pakistan acquire control over its nuclear and foreign policies? And the answer this friend of mine gave to me once was that when two elected governments have completed their full term and gone to elections, and when three army chiefs have peacefully retired and gone home to play golf. So I think one government has completed the full term now, and two chiefs, although not successive, two chiefs, I think Kakad and after that now Kayani, have gone home to play golf. Play golf or gulli danda, I don't know, but they've gone home. They are not participating in politics. Now, that happens because of India's influence, because people say that, look, India has all this chaos of democracy. If you go back, you'll remember Zia was once asked, Zia-ul Haq, that why aren't you holding elections? So he said, when a patient is sick and confined to a hospital, you don't take him to run a race on the track. You first nurse it back to good health, and then you can have democracy. So democracy was seen as a kind of luxury or a holiday. That is not the case anymore. I know that many will question me, and do we have time for some questions, sir? Do we have time for a couple of questions? So I know questions will come up in Pakistan, because it does look like that in Pakistan our army has acquired control again of the power structures, but that's a different story, and we can talk about that. But the fact is that almost since Musharraf left, no Pakistani general has thought about formally taking over power. And if they do, people of Pakistan will react. In our entire region now, democracy is an established principle. It's a wonderful region. It doesn't happen to our right, to our east. It doesn't happen to our west. It doesn't happen to our north, right? And I don't know where does it happen to our south as we go down Indian Ocean. How many countries can boast the same kind of democracy? And I think that is all the influence that we've exercised. You can call it soft power. You can call it hard power. I would say that use it further. Build on it. Build on your institutions. Have people steal an idea from the Americans and the Western world. Look at the way the Western world, led by America, dealt with the Soviet Union and countries of the Iron Curtain during the Cold War. They kept their military strength generally superior to the Eastern Bloc, but at the same time open up its institutions, its democracy, its universities, its academies, its journalism to people from these countries. Even Gorbachev led it up in an American university. That is what we have to do now very aggressively for the entire region. And I know many of you are from the police, the Home Ministry is sitting here. There will be issues of visas, there will be the usual suspicions. I do not believe that anybody who has to come to spy in India will particularly come on a regular visa. If that was the case, then all infiltration will not be a problem. So we have to revise our doctrines. We have to now get over this current mood in our country. The current mood, hawkish mood in the country, is being set by idiots on prime time. Not on one channel, but on half a dozen channels. And I say that the only solution maybe now to India-Pakistan problem is to give real rifles to these guys. Because right now they want us to go to war with Pakistan and China at the same time, and if possible with Australia as well, because some students get beaten up there. So our political class, our bureaucratic class, our decision makers have to stop getting influenced by this noise. They have to stop responding to what my friend Nick Gowing of the BBC calls it as the tyranny of real time. Because then military force is the best equalizer, particularly in the India-Pakistan situation, because ultimately both sides have the nukes. Both sides, we have to be careful. Howsoever we may cover the wars that we fight, people who fought wars with Pakistan know that Pakistan's armed forces are not pushovers. In Kargil, sir, we had finally built such a superiority of manpower, of artillery firepower, a total air superiority, and yet when our soldiers very bravely assaulted those peaks, they still found Pakistanis there. Pakistanis had not gone away. So these are in many ways evenly matched. Certainly our armed forces are a great deterrent. We have great armed strength and power. But times when you could exercise military power and meet your objectives are now over. You can exercise the notion of superior military power very carefully and combine that with all your other traditional soft power and achieve the objectives. That to me is a Hawke's agenda. I know that, I have not used the word soft power many times because that word has a bad ring. As soft power, we mean Bollywood in India, Bollywood or cricket, etc., etc., etc. But I'll tell you, I'll give you a quote, the only thing that I've got written from Joseph Nye, who is a great American analyst and scholar and diplomat. And he says, a country may obtain the outcomes it wants in world politics because other countries, and other countries can be Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Bhutan, other countries admiring its values, emulating its examples, aspiring to its level of prosperity and openness want to follow it. In this sense, it is also important to set the agenda and attract others in world politics, and not only to force them to change by threatening with force or economic sanctions. This softer power, getting others to want the outcome that you want, this co-opts people rather than coerces them. I think willy-nilly, maybe not fully by design, we have done a good job of that. Now, I think the Prime Minister now reaching out to neighboring countries, yes, he's following a 1-2 policy. He has one policy to Pakistan, one policy towards the rest of the region. I would say that towards Pakistan also, we should nuance our policy a bit. So we deal with Pakistan's establishment in a certain way, Pakistan's people in another way, and build disincentives that people of Pakistan can see in the short run and in the long run on leaning back on their armed forces. Because a big problem in Pakistan is the most important neighbor for us, is the notion that Pakistan army has built over all these years, that they are the guardians of ideological frontiers of the Pakistani state. That it is in our interest to question that and dismantle that notion. Because as long as that notion is there, insecurities will continue and madnesses will continue. I will quote to you a conversation that we had once with Mr. David Cameron, Prime Minister of Great Britain. He said that, look, he was talking about the NATO mindset, that everybody is looking at a way, and this is before he became Prime Minister. He had come to India as leader of the opposition. Everybody has to find a way of getting out of this hole called AFPAC. And I said, sir, but look at us. We have to find a way for us and our future generations to live peacefully next to this hole called AFPAC forever. Because as Mr. Vajpayee said, we can't change our neighbors. And as the Israelis have shown you, it doesn't help to build walls. You can build walls of any size that you want. It's not going to work. So you will need an agenda now, which will be hawkish because it is trying to help us achieve our larger objective, which is also to have sway in our region, our immediate region, but combining our hard and soft power, and I would say exercising soft power and just the pretense very selectively used of exercising our hard power. So I think I will conclude on that note. If you have time for some questions, I am happy to take them.
Thank you so much, sir, for an enriching lecture. I'm sure all of us are greatly benefited. May I request Special DG NIA Mr. N.R. Vasan to moderate the questions. Please raise your hands, identify yourself, and keep the questions as short as possible.
Atul Singh. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Fair Observer. We have more than 1,000 writers from over 40 countries. The former Irish Prime Minister, John Bruton, is one of our advisors. You quoted Joe Nye, a friend of mine, and he's written about soft power, and I would say that if you go further back, if you want to see soft power, which I would define in Gramscian terms, Antonio Gramsci, a far brighter man than Joe, and he'd agree with me, talked about legitimacy, talked about the hegemonic power of ideas and gaining legitimacy. Now, one of the most interesting things that I find is the assumption that in Pakistan, there is this desire to be like India, and whilst that is true for the middle classes in Karachi, my editor is from Karachi, and that's true for people in Islamabad or even Lahore, or especially Lums, it is not true of a lot of younger people who are radicalized. Case in point, the Pakistani Assembly just passed a universal resolution condemning the new cartoons of Charlie Hebdo and said that the repercussions would be to the West. Now, as you know, the State Department, the CIA, and we have a member, an American here, sitting right next to me, all of them would not like Charlie Hebdo staff to publish those articles. In fact, the White House doesn't like a lot of what we write. But in a democracy, ours, as well as in France, as well as in England, as well as in the US, the state cannot intervene into the right of freedom of expression. And that is a fundamental idea that is still not understood in Pakistan. And remember, both fascism and Nazism came through electoral politics. So just saying that, oh, we have democracy and everything will be wonderful and we'll sing Kumbaya is actually bunkum. So what have you got to say to that, to these trends in Pakistan?
Well, ours are diverse societies. I think in any group of 100 Indians, you will find maybe 3 or 4 or 5 who will say, oh, it's much better to be ruled by the military, right? In fact, when let me come to, let me reply to you. So when Musharraf used to come to India initially, for example, a lot of the people among Indian elites, not say Indian equivalent of people living in Islamabad, Lahore, Karachi, was very impressed with him. Look at these Pakistani leaders, they are so stylish and they are so articulate, look at ours on the other hand, right? So people have diversity of thought. I understand the problem that you are stating, but what is the solution? Pakistan is a country of 180 million people approximately, or maybe more now, because it's one of the fastest growing populations in the world. Its population is growing more than 1 percentage point, 100 basis points higher than India's. Ours is 1.45, theirs is 2.8 per thousand per year. In that country, you can leave them as they are, right? It's a country with the 5th largest army in the world. It's the country with the 4th largest nuclear stockpile in the world, larger than ours. It's a country with more Punjabis than the rest of the world, right? I keep saying that 2% of us Indians are Punjabis and we create such trouble in India. Look at Pakistan, 60% of the country is Punjabi, right? You can leave them as it is and you can be contentious of them and they got what they deserve. But is that the Pakistan you want next door to you? I think changing the nature of Pakistani society for the better and changing the nature of Pakistani's polity, shifting it from religion and Sharia to modern constitutionalism has to be a global project, because you can't take away their nukes, you can't take away their army, and you can't take away their anger and frustration. In fact, it's a question I ask all my Pakistani friends. Some get angry, some try to answer it. Some get angry, they're nonsense, it's bakwas hai, jhoot hai. Some say yes, there is justification for it. And some like Hussein Haqqani, who was Pakistan's ambassador to the US and now is in exile, they try and find an answer to this, which is that Iraq got invaded, Afghanistan got invaded, Israelis, Jews took away Palestinians' land. I'm stating these cases very simplistically. But yet, how come the angriest Muslims in the world are found in Pakistan? How come? So in fact, Hussein Haqqani says that's because we were set up as an ideological state. We were not set up as a natural state. And what was the ideology? That Muslims of the subcontinent need a separate country because Muslims can never feel secure or can never prosper in an India we might have a Hindu majority. And whenever we see traditional Pakistanis, Muslims doing all right in India, it angers them. And it angers the elites most of all, because elites made Pakistan. Jinnah was the elite of the elite. The ordinary people did not make Pakistan. The elites, the feudals made Pakistan, and they feel now they got left behind. So either you can then submit to them and the generals and everybody, because it suits the generals. As long as this fear is there, they can continue. And in fact, they use that fear with the Western world fully, that if we are not in charge, that nutcases will take over the nukes. So in fact, nuclear deterrence is working for Pakistan in 2 different ways. One, it might work with us. On the other hand, it works with the Western world. Okay, after us, the mullahs. And the nukes are there. So I think changing the nature of Pakistani society has to be part of everybody's agenda. And this is an agenda in which all of the world would be quite willing to join hands. From the US to China, from Russia to Burma. Because otherwise these influences, it's a large angry Muslim population with a large modern army capable of accepting orders and fighting in a disciplined manner with nuclear weapons. So you cannot take a Salamist, Salami is a bad metaphor to use, but you cannot deal with these problems in a Salamist-like manner. That I will deal with Lashkar-e-Taiba once, then I will deal with Jaish-e-Mohammed, then I will deal with TTP, then I will deal with ISI. You have to look at the entire society and polity. Sir, in the microphone. So.
My name is Vasudev Rao. I am Special Chief in Delhi Police. The central question I think is, how do we deal with the double speak of Pakistan on terrorism vis-a-vis India? Even America doesn't seem to take a consistent stand and tell them that you can't have two-tongued policy on terrorism. So how do we tackle this problem? Even the issue of professionalization of Pakistan Army also an issue. They say that they are professional, but they are only giving encouragement to religious fanaticism. And as long as they don't resolve this internal contradiction, India will continue to have problems. So what solution do you think we have to tackle this double speak of Pakistan on terrorism vis-a-vis India? Thank you.
See, we can't take all of Pakistan's generals and leaders to a Vipassana, or so they have mourn vrat for 10 days and come back better human beings, right? This is the reality. But we have to see where this reality stems from. This reality stems from the complicated structure, or maybe simplistic structure of Pakistani polity, where the armed forces get precedence over all other institutions on the presumption and large-scale belief that if they were not there, India would roll all over them. So the way to change the nature of Pakistani society is to address that. I mean, today you have a situation when you have an elected government with a full majority, but in no time that government has lost control and power, because the army was able to first use opposition parties, namely Imran Khan and others, and second, this incident in Peshawar has led to such an upsurge of sympathy for the army that that country's parliament has almost unanimously passed a resolution authorizing legalizing military courts. Right? So the same thing we had seen happen after 26/11. 26/11, we were the victims, they were obviously the perpetrators of that crime, but within 3 days, what happened? Within 3 days, Pakistan built a hawa that India was going to attack us, right? Within 3 days, Pakistani jets were flying low over their own cities. Air Chief Marshal is sitting here, he will tell you that if Pakistanis feared Indian jets attacking their cities, then their jets in defense should be flying higher, not lower, right? But they were flying low basically to impress their people कि अब खतरा आ रहा है इंडिया से. That was a time when the reputation and the izzat of Pakistani army was at its lowest in a long time, because Musharraf had just messed with the system. Judiciary had won that battle with Musharraf. There was an elected government. Asif Zardari was there. Benazir's assassination, everything. Army was disliked at that time intensely, but they used that opportunity in 24 hours to change the mood. In 24 hours, all of Pakistan was saying, but for these armed forces, these bloody politicians, we'll lose all of Pakistan to India. So there's a psychology in the country. That psychology has to be addressed. You cannot address that psychology by firing more at the border. You can fire more at the border, but you cannot address that psychology by firing more at the border. You have to address that psychology by saying that, look, which country has benefited from the policies it has followed? And I will take a minute and tell you, it's a theory for me. The first time I went to Pakistan was in 1985. I went to cover the trial of Sikh hijackers there. And I was quite taken aback to see how much richer Pakistan seemed than India. Even an ordinary Pakistani, the taxi driver, the doorman at the hotel, the teleprinter operator in the telegraph office, because we used to send our dispatches by telegram. In fact, the telegraph machine, the teleprinter machine, we had the tuck old Hindustan teleprinter machines. They had beautiful French Segum machines, right? And you thought this country is way ahead of us. And the fact is that in 1985, Pakistan's per capita income was 65% higher than India's. 65%. Now, 1980s is a period, you see, when Pakistan decided to use terrorism as an instrument of state policy against India. That's where it was succeeding in Afghanistan, and everybody said, wow, that's the way, strategy of bleeding India, adversary with 1,000 cuts. 65% higher per capita income than us in 85. By national growth rate, GDP growth rate, about 2.5% higher, than 2.5 percentage points higher than us then. Today, the national growth rate is 3% lower than us. Today, the per capita of income in Pakistan is marginally lower than in India. So I call it Pakistan's self-imposed punishment for using terror as an instrument of national policy. That you lose a 65% head start, you go into negative. And today, India has actually not a 3% head start over them every year on GDP growth, but a 5%, 4.5%. Because 3% comes from higher growth, and 1.5% comes from the lower growth of our population. In fact, that is what all our babas who've never had the pleasure of producing a baby, at least legitimately, they don't realize when they tell Hindus to produce 4 children or 10 children or 15 children, that it's because India has become a much more modern society, and we have to become a much better example like that. It'll take time. You know, the gentleman mentioned LUMS. LUMS is the Lahore University of Management Sciences, set up by the private sector. It's a beautiful modern university. It was set up because too many Pakistanis, well-to-do people came to India and looked at IITs and IIMs and said, why can't we have an institution like this? And if you walk in LUMS, I've stayed there overnight a couple of times at conferences, it's the only place in Lahore where on a campus you can find a boy and girl walking hand in hand, sometimes even doing what romantic young couples do at sunset time in a corner, little bit of necking and petting. So India has to be, in the long run, a good influence. You know, we can keep fighting and we can say they are liars, but they are liars because they believe in it.
Thank you.
So there's one in the back, and I think.
Good morning, sir. Myself, Vikram, SP, NIA, Kolkata, sir. Just want to know regarding the thing like, as you said very elaborately, that our neighbors are under great influence of India, and to great extent they try to copy India. And that's true also to great extent. If we read, only by reading only we will get to know, not the luxury to visit and all that. But still, if it is the case, then now the process, if you see the radicalization process, I would like to talk about it. In Pakistan, the radicalization is increasing, as well as in India. We were never thought of having our own radicalized people, like we will be working or will be willing to join certain kind of movements globally, which is going on currently. So I just want to say, is it not another influence which is coming from outside, which we are not or failing to tackle to great extent? And this failure to certain extent I would like to attribute to not just to because we are not working on ourselves, what I mean to say, because there are loopholes. Still we should work internally on our own people, and
I think I get your point, sir.
Yeah. And one just continuation, the role of media in this connection regard in a broader perspective about. Thank you.
Look, influences now travel across the borders. Influences know no borders. You can build any walls. You can build. Pakistanis, you know, banned YouTube a long time back, and that ban continues there. But it doesn't mean that people can't watch YouTube or people can't get their ways around YouTube. So influences now travel. But it's a question of what is the dominant influence. So some people will be radicalized in India as well, but many more will not be. In fact, I was just discussing with somebody sitting here that look at the beauty of India. The beauty of India is that until now, since we became independent, the leaders of Indian Muslims were all Hindus. Even at this point, leaders of Indian Muslims are Sonia Gandhi, Mulayam Singh Yadav, Lalu Yadav, Mamata Banerjee, the left in some state. Since Jinnah, Indian Muslims have not needed a Muslim leader. It's only now that we've seen the rise of two. One is Ajmal in Assam, and the other is Owaisi in Hyderabad, right? And why has that happened? So these are things that we Indians need to think about. Is it happening because Muslims in India, or some Muslims, maybe as fringe, does not feel confident enough or secure enough to have traditional mainstream leaders as people who will lead them, protect them? And maybe that has happened because traditional mainstream parties or regional parties which had the Muslim vote and which the Muslims saw as their leaders have let down Muslims very badly. They've taken Muslims for granted as a vote bank. Right? Today there is a bursting Indian Muslim middle class. Muslim boys and girls have the same aspirations that your children and mine do. Right? Indian Muslims do not want to be put into any straight jacket. Look, we are a wonderful country. The beauty of India is, and frankly also the subcontinent, the determinants of identity change every 100 miles. So in one place it is religion, in one place it's sect, in one place say even if you're a Muslim or a Hindu, it can be which Baba you follow or which Sadhu you follow. Some of them are not nice guys, as we know. Some of them also make films about themselves as rock stars. In some places it's language, it's culture, it's food. I mean, if you go to Tamil Nadu, for example, most Tamil Muslims see themselves as Tamil first. How is it that Hasina is able to say, I'm a secular country and not have a large Muslim upsurge? Because Bengalis generally see themselves as Bengali first. Same poets, same food, same painters, same culture. So you have to work on diversity that unites the subcontinent. You don't have to push at the fault lines of this diversity to further divide it. You will not get a perfect world. But that is the direction in which you have to move. I know that many people in India think we should break up Pakistan into 5. It is possible to break up Pakistan, although I do believe that over the years a Pakistani nationalism has now come into a being. It will not be easy. But suppose you broke up Pakistan into 5, what will you get? You will get a Sindh, a Baluchistan, a Pakhtunistan, a Kashmir, what is POK, and Pakistan. What will that Pakistan be? That Pakistan will be 100% Punjabi. That Pakistan will have 95% of Pakistan's army, 100% of Pakistan's nukes, and 500% of Punjabi Muslims' hostility to India. Do you really want that? I think Pakistan's diversity, the 5 provinces, Muhajirs, the ethnic diversity of Pakistan, actually moderates the nature of that society. So these are debates that we need to carry out, and that's why I say a hawkish idea doesn't just have to be what happened on the LOC last night, or what happened, 2 more Lashkar modules were busted last month. All that will have to be done. But that and these 2 nutcase anchors on evening channels, they cannot determine a large country's strategic response to a very interesting and a very challenging neighborhood.
I think we have.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. May I now request the Honorable Minister of State for Home Affairs, Mr. Kiran Rijiju, to address the distinguished audience.
Shekhar ji, Director NIA, Union Home Secretary, the senior officers, distinguished guest here. I will not speak much because I am here to preside over the meeting and to listen to Shekhar Gupta ji, who has been one of the leading media men in this country, and as he stated, I had known him from long time. And before I was Member of Parliament, I had written, I think, couple of times in a column in Indian Express. And it's good to hear him out on a subject. I think he's capable of giving very in-depth opinion. I'm extremely delighted that I've been invited for this second Rising Day for the National Investigation Agency. I compliment all the meritorious medal winners, the officers, the Jawans, those who have given their time for the country, and they could contribute to the security of this country. We are indeed very, very grateful to the services rendered by them. At the same time, the challenges are there. We need to really rise the level of our competence, level of our efforts. And I know with 816 strength which NIA has today, it is certainly not enough, because in the days to come, we realize that many more challenges are going to come on the way, and NIA has much more in stake to deliver. So we look forward that this premier investigation agency really take the shape on the basis of which it was established. I remember when in 2008 when I was a member of the opposition party in Lok Sabha, when it was debated. It was a historic occasion, and I complimented the then Home Minister, Mr. Chidambaram. I was one of the leading speaker after Mr. Advani in the Lok Sabha. I told him that time that this is one of the few occasions when Parliament is debating on terrorism and there is a complete solidarity with a bill which is moved by the government. And the government must seize that opportunity to come up with an appropriate body to deal with the challenge. And there was lots of discussion before that on a need for anti-terror law in this country. And we know lots of stories, what preceded before that, the incidents which happened across the country, Pota days. Then we had so many, cases pending, and there was talk of having much more professional agencies in place. And 2008, when we saw the birth of NIA, we really had so much of hope. And today I can say, on this second rising day, it has come of age. If it has acquired a status of very competent organization, it is because of the credibility which it could establish. And the basis or the core values on which NIA has proceeded, the integrity of the officers, the integrity of the institution, the agency itself, has been successfully established because integrity will come only it can deliver. And the core value of NIA, I think, has been successfully established from the day one, the first Director General who took over and on whose memory we are sitting here today. R.V. Raju Memorial Lecture, and it is appropriately delivered today by Mr. Shekhar Gupta, and the subject was appropriate. And I think NIA is moving in right direction. And I feel sometimes people talk about a need for extraordinary law to deal with terrorism. But for me, I feel more than the law itself, it is the agency who deals with the subject that is more effective, that is more important, more relevant. And today, because of the impeccable officers which we have seen in NIA, right from Director General to all the officers who are leading the investigation at the rank of SPs and the subordinate officers, we could see all the cases which are there with NIA are moving in right direction without attracting much criticism as we are used to when any agency deals with very high profile cases. This is very important. And today we have 6 regional offices, but I feel the size of this nation is so big that we are going to have much more in future. When we have to deal with the issues in the ministry, and sometimes I see during the presentation or briefing during the parliamentary questions and all, what I realize is the information which we get from NIA is the officers is very precise, and which gives so much of the comfort to the government that the agencies led by the competent officers are carrying forward their jobs in much more professional manner which was envisaged when this body took into shape. We are living in a country which is very well described by Shekhar Gupta, that the challenges are bound to come. On the one side, we have very unstable Pakistan, and on the other side, very, very stable China. In fact, too stable that the government never changes. And we have smaller nations surrounding us, Nepal, where it seems to be a stable government or a majority government is still far away, and to Bhutan, which is so stable that within 2 terms of its nascent states of democracy, it has seen smooth transition of power between 2 parties. King is totally out of the scene. And then we have fairly stable governments and system in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. So the challenges are there. And the region where I come from, I have seen from the very beginning at very young age that we come from Northeast India. And the state which I represent is one of the most stable, most peaceful state in this country. But over the period of time, when I'm involved with so many issues, and when I started my political career in 1989 at very young age, there are sentiments being wiped up in Northeast. They say, India should not be one country. There are many theories which is doing around that India will break up. Kashmir, at one point of time, especially in 1989, when I went to Kashmir as a very young university student, it was really very unlike India. But today, if you see, I don't see any reason that even an inch of our territory will go away. This is because the nature of Indian society is such that we will never break up. No matter which power in the world think that India will someday break up, or they can use some instrument to wipe up the sentiments of different regions, religious groups, ethnic and other groups to destabilize India, it will not happen. Simply because democracy is so strong in this country. Today, there is not possible to have any state or any region where 100% will say that we want to go away from this country. It is not possible. That is why when the debate came that NCTC, NIA, it will override the power of the state governments and all, I think the debate is not based on well-founded theory. The nature of the Indian establishment is such that even if the whole assembly of a state passes a resolution that we don't consider ourselves to be part of India, then there will be enough number within that state to oppose that move and say that we don't recognize that particular resolution. India is made in such a way that everybody has a space in the society. Forget about any right of a state or organization. Here today media is also so strong that even one individual person's right is also taken care of, to the extent government of the day cannot act blatantly to abuse the right of an individual. The Indian society is so robust. So keeping all this in view, India is moving in right direction. But when we talk about the challenges, it is enormous again. Because we are not an authority country. We are not run by authoritarians or dictators. When we sometimes we say that India is a soft power, or what Shekhar Gupta was asked to deliver today, hawkish policy. I don't think India needs to really adopt a hawkish policy. And the character of India doesn't suit for that kind of policy. We are a natural soft power. Natural soft power doesn't mean our apparatus should be soft. But the basic behavior of India, the nation, has to be soft. I always believe that India is a spiritual superpower. We cannot play or tinkle with that. The idea of India, that India is a vast country, a symbol of peace. Just to take a note out of this seminar, recently I had gone to Thailand. I carried a portion of soil from Kushinagar, Sarnath, Bodh Gaya, and the original leaf of a Bodhi tree from Bodh Gaya. I presented it to the Supreme Patriarch of Thailand. He is the person who rules the royal family with his guidance and directions to the king. When I presented to him, he immediately took that material with him and he prayed. So I was accompanied by our officers there, the ambassador and the Indian official team. I was accompanied by my RGI from the Home Ministry also. What was the prayer? When I was interpreted back, I was told that he prayed that may Lord Buddha give India enough power to continue to enlighten and guide this world. So that means the symbol of India, the image of India across the globe is soft. And that is, we should not play around with that idea. But at the same time, I always believe that we must be strong, we must be firm. When I was not even member of parliament 15 years back, when I was member of Khadi and Village Industries Commission. Now Khadi Commission, you know, Khadi is a symbol of Gandhian philosophy actually. So when even I was in the Khadi Commission, I was invited to speak on topics related to China. Being from Arunachal and being quite vocal even in those days, media used to invite me if there's some controversy related to China. And I was termed as a hawkish. I always bash China. I'm very aggressive. I always want to go with war with China. But which is not actually. What I was, telling all those years was, we must not be aggressive. We must not take a posture of ready to jump into war, but we must establish our firmness through our action. Meaning thereby, I want India to be a stable, responsible power. Neither weak nor aggressive, but stable, responsible power. And that is possible, and that is what we have to follow. Within that philosophy, I feel to maintain India as a great power, the agencies, the apparatus in hand, it needs to really work together in a manner what NIA is doing its job. I have not thought about speaking on its subject. As I said, I thought I'll just come and preside over and go back. But after listening to Shekhar Gupta, he is right. I have agreed on most of the issues which he had given his opinion. We need not really jump over the issues. And every time you get time to watch television in the evening, around 8 o'clock onwards, the debates and discussion you see, it doesn't take India into its rightful place. I personally feel that. We need to be very responsible. And at the same time, I must tell this audience that the obsession in the mind of Indians and Pakistan with each other. The Indians and Pakistanis need to understand that, okay, we are neighbors, but the excessive obsession doesn't do any good to the two countries. if we have to rise as a global power, we need to get over Pakistani obsession. Same as the Chinese, the obsession of Chinese with the Japanese. It's so much ingrained with every Chinese. That is partly being propped up by the state itself, that you have to achieve something, you pass some very suitable objective in hand. So same is the case here. I think we need to go beyond it. The challenges will be taken care of by the effective agencies, our organizations. Government is there, but at the same time, we need not give Pakistan and bring it into all the dimensions, foreign policies, our military policies, security policies. We need not bring in all the time. And this is partly because of the media also, right from central India upwards, Kashmir, the North India basically. We admit the historical linkages, we cannot just snap it overnight. But if you go to South India, Northeast India, it's fine. The moment you come to Delhi and the northern part of India, the obsession with Pakistan is so much. Sometimes I feel it's overdriving our own attitude also. So that is something why I said is because India is destined to be a global power. So we have to rightfully take our stage only through rightful behavior in a manner what is expected of us as a leading power of this South Asia, a global responsible power. I would not like to take much time. I thought when I'm presiding over the function, I just give few words of my thoughts. I'm thankful to all the senior officers, all the distinguished who have come over here to be part of the celebration being organized by the NIA, and I'm thankful that the Home Secretary has taken part with us. And once again, I congratulate all the medal winners and wish all the officers and Jawans of NIA all the best for your future endeavors. And we need to secure this country, and NIA is one of the agencies we bet on. Thank you so much.
We would now like to present mementos to our distinguished guest. May I request the Honorable Minister of State for Home Affairs, Mr. Kiran Rijiju, to present a shawl to the wife of the founding DG of NIA, the late Radha Vinod Raju, Mrs. Achama Vinod, who is with us today. I request her to present shawl to Ms. Achama Vinod. Thank you, ma'am. May I now invite DG NIA to present a memento to the Honorable Minister of State for Home Affairs as a token of our gratitude and appreciation. Thank you, sir. May I request you, sir, to also present a memento to Shri Shekhar Gupta. Thank you. May I once again request, sir, to present a token of appreciation to the Union Home Secretary, Shri Anil Goswami. Thank you, sir. May I now call upon the Special DG NIA, Shri N.R. Vasan, to propose vote of thanks.
Shri Kiran Rijiju, Honorable Union Minister of State for Home, Shri Shekhar Gupta, Keynote Speaker of the Day, Shri Anil Goswami, Union Home Secretary, senior officers of the Union and State Governments, colleagues, media, ladies and gentlemen. We have now reached the conclusion of the second National Investigation Day celebration, our annual trust with our beginnings and a luster for our future. I deem it a honor and privilege to propose vote of thanks on behalf of NIA to the dignitaries present on the dais. At the outset, let me thank the Honorable Union Minister of State for Home for having graced the occasion with his presence as well as for his profound presidential remarks. Beside commemorating the founding of the organization, the NIA Day attempts to bring together professionals working together in the field of national security for an enlightening lecture on the subject of pressing concern. Today we had Shri Shekhar Gupta sharing his scholarship and insight on the critical question of Pakistan and the neighborhood. Thank you, Shri Shekhar Gupta, for your talk and thoughtful answers to the questions posed by audience. The NIA owes much to the guidance and support of Shri Anil Goswami, Union Home Secretary. I thank him for the same as well as for his presence on this day. We are delighted to have among us Shrimati Achama Vinod, the wife of late Shri R.V. Raj. We thank you for gracing the occasion. I also thank all senior officers present on this occasion. And finally, I'll thank DG NIA and my colleagues in NIA for making this program a success. I also convey my thanks to media and the staff of DRDO who have made this function possible. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I invite the medal winners along with their families to kindly assemble outside the auditorium near the main entrance for a photograph with our dignitaries. And rest, please join us for tea and refreshment arranged in the atrium. Thank you all. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.
सर, आपको NIA की तरफ से आज मेडल मिला और आप कैसा महसूस कर रहे हो और किस बात के लिए मिला ये बता दीजिएगा।
रियली ये तो आज बहुत ही गर्व महसूस हो रहा है क्योंकि लंबे सर्विस का करियर जो मेरा था 26 ईयर्स, जस्ट टुडे वी हैव कंप्लीटेड एट लीस्ट 26 ईयर्स सर्विस। सो 26 साल पुलिस में सेवा करना और जो इंडिया की टॉप मोस्ट एजेंसीज हैं उसमें सर्विस करना। ITBP भी मैंने ज्वाइन किया, देन आफ्टर इमीडिएटली आई ज्वाइन SPG स्पेशल प्रोटेक्शन ग्रुप। आई रिमेन देयर फॉर 10 years एंड आई सर्व विद 5 प्राइम मिनिस्टर राइट फ्रॉम चंद्रशेखर टू वाजपेयी 92-2000। देयर आफ्टर मैं CBI में रहा, CBI के बाद फिर NIA ज्वाइन किया।
ये कौन से अचीवमेंट है जिसकी वजह से आपको आज अवार्ड मिला है? ये
मेरा अचीवमेंट है, आज तक मैंने जो भी काम किया बड़ी दृढ़ता से किया, बड़ी संलग्नता से किया और मेरी ईमानदारी और जो डेडिकेशन मेरा काम करने के प्रति जो था वो सीनियर ऑफिसर ने मैं उसको पहचाना और मेरे को सूटेबली जो है अवॉर्डेड किया।
और इसके साथ आपको और इंकरेजमेंट मिलती है और आगे
यस डेफिनेटली जो मेरे को अवार्ड मिला हुआ है आज उससे मैं इतना गर्व महसूस कर रहा हूँ कि इसका काम करने की शैली पे और फर्क पड़ेगा। मैं और अच्छा करके दिखाऊं ताकि जो है आगे जो और अच्छे अवार्ड है वो मैं प्राप्त कर सकूँ।
सर, आपका नाम और डेजिग्नेशन के साथ बता दीजिएगा एक बार।
मेरा नाम सुदेश कुमार राणा है और मैं डिप्टी सुप्रिटेंडेंट पुलिस NIA।
थैंक यू। थैंक यू।
एक नाम कांस्टेबल राजेश बाबू NIA में डिप्टी साहब। अभी मेरे को 25 साल की सर्विस में अच्छी सेवा के लिए मुझे पुलिस मेडल मिला।
तो किस तरह की अचीवमेंट है ये, आप कैसे देखते हैं?
फौज में अपने लिए अच्छी सेवा करूँ। इसमें मेरे सर्विस में 25 साल में किसी चीज़ का कोई लाभ नहीं मेरा।
और कितने साल से सर्विस में?
25 साल से मैं सर्विस कर रहा हूँ।
अच्छा, कहाँ कहाँ पोस्टेड थे आप?
मैं श्रीनगर में रहा हूँ, उसके बाद राजस्थान में रहा हूँ, पंजाब में रहा हूँ, दिल्ली में 5 साल NSG भी मैंने काटी।
ये इंकरेजमेंट लगता है आपको कि इस तरह से अवार्ड देना अच्छा लगता है?
अच्छा लगा, बहुत बहुत।
बहुत बहुत। थैंक यू, थैंक यू, ऑल द बेस्ट।
थैंक यू सर।
मेरा नाम प्रदीप बाबूराव माने। मैं महाराष्ट्र सोलापुर डिस्ट्रिक्ट मंगलवाड़ा छोटे से शहर से बिलोंग्स करता हूँ और मैं फ़िलहाल अभी NIA में 5 साल से सर्विस कर रहा हूँ। मेरा पेरेंट डिपार्टमेंट है CISF। उसके बाद मैंने CBI मुंबई में 8 साल काम किया है और ताजमहल में भी मैं 3 साल सर्विस कर चुका हूँ। उसके बाद NIA में मैं और डेपुटेशन आया हूँ 2010 में। तब से मैं अब तक यहाँ काम कर रहा हूँ और ये पूरे सर्विस 26 ईयर सर्विस का जो आज मुझे तोहफा मिला है, इससे मैं बहुत खुश हूँ।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, थैंक यू सर। आज आपको अवार्ड मिला है, आपको किस सर्विसेज को रिकॉग्नाइज करते हुए अवार्ड दिया और कौन से स्टेट से बिलोंग करते हो आप बता दीजिए।
मैं हरियाणा से बिलोंग करता हूँ और इनिशियली मैं RPF में एज ए सब इंस्पेक्टर हुआ। उसके बाद मैं एज ए डिप्टी SP NIA में काम करता हूँ। हमारी जो पास्ट सर्विसेज हैं उसी के बेस पे ये जो इंडियन पुलिस मेडल मिलता है, जो कि किसी भी पुलिस ऑफिसर के लिए एक बड़ा सम्मानित रिवार्ड होता है माननीय राष्ट्रपति जी की तरफ से। ये भी उसी में जो हमारा यहाँ NIA में योगदान था, पूर्व का जो योगदान था, उसी की जो मेरिटोरियस सर्विस है उसी के बेस पे अवार्ड मिला।
इस तरह के अवार्ड से आपको लगता है कि आपके जितने भी साथी हैं उनका मनोबल बढ़ेगा?
निश्चित है कि इस तरह के जो भी अवार्ड्स हैं, ये एक प्रेस्टिजियस अवार्ड है पुलिस ऑफिसर्स के लिए और इससे मनोबल जो है हर एक पुलिस ऑफिसर का बढ़ता है। वो भी चाहता है कि उसको इस तरह का पद मिले।
बहुत बहुत थैंक यू।
I belong to the 1998 batch of the Indian Police Service. I belong to Jammu and Kashmir. My cadre is Madhya Pradesh. So after serving for 11 years in Madhya Pradesh, I came on deputation to National Investigation Agency in 2009. I have been awarded by the President of India twice with the Police Medal for Gallantry. I started my days in NIA with an investigation of a fake currency terrorist network case. That case resulted in a conviction, and it was for the first time we proved forensically and scientifically that the fake currency is being produced in Pakistan, and the court also accepted our investigational outcomes and convicted the case. I was the chief investigating officer of one of the LET training modules case in which 4 Kerala boys were killed in Kashmir. That case also resulted in a conviction, life imprisonment to 13 people. Now I have been supervising the both Gaya blast cases, the Patna blast cases, and other cases. Well, this medal means a lot to a police officer. It is a recognition by the government, by the establishment of the services rendered by a police station or a police officer. This it gives a lot of motivation to the officer to continue with his work, and I'm sure that these medals should continue because a recognition from the right quarters is what an officer is looking for, and if we get this recognition at the right time, it really gives an impetus to the hard work and so that we always work in a scrupulous manner.
Thank you.